Hi, it's good to talk to you today, Mira.
You too.
I know you have done a lot of movies through the years, and I have followed those for as long as I can remember. I remember your dad when you first came on the scene. This is Paul's daughter, you know. But there's something special about this movie. It kind of blends into your personal activism and was something a little bit different than just playing a role, right?
Yes, I've been an advocate against human trafficking since 2004, when I first discovered that slavery did not die with the end of legal chattel slavery, but is alive and well in the form of this illicit, multi-billion-dollar industry with 40 million people living as slaves today, the highest number in recorded history, and only 0.4% of them being discovered, rescued, or exiting themselves. So 99.6% of people in slavery will stay in slavery currently, and we need to do something about that. So when you watch this movie, Sound of Freedom, I think your heart is going to be so moved by the plight of these children who are trafficked for sex. These child actors are like incredible. They're like heartbreaking and beautiful, and the way that the movie tells the story, and you see Jim Caviezel's performance, the way that his face registered the pain as he's understanding the reality of what's happening and feeling this helplessness. But I think if all of us watch this movie and we're moved and we come away and say, well, he did something, we can do something too. All of us in our small way, small or great, can do something to end this modern slavery in our time and help the survivors of it reclaim the lives that they were meant for, and not look away and not leave them, in this horrendous squalor of rape and beatings and death. We can instead lift them up. Right. But it will take all of us to do that, because right now our complacency is why human trafficking is thriving, because we don't care enough to do enough to make our government stop it, to empower the people who are already doing the work on the ground to support these survivors, and to change the culture that says that it's okay to either enslave people for labor and buy their goods super cheaply, or to enslave people for commercial sexual exploitation and
Right.
child sexual abuse. So if we didn't have a culture that said it's okay to buy bodies, it's okay to watch online child sexual abuse, it wouldn't be happening. But we have said it's okay. By not doing more about it.
Right. I write about things like from a faith perspective, and there's a role that faith plays into this story.
Oh, yes.
And you want to talk a little bit about that? It's more than just seeing something, but there's like a deeper calling behind it.
I mean, I think that when Tim, in the story, I mean, he told this story afterwards that used to be more in the movie in terms of our relationship as husband and wife. Like, his wife challenged him, Catherine challenged him to say, like, about this now, you have the opportunity to help these children, and you're asking me for an excuse not to? Like, when we're called before God, like,
Right.
What are we going to say? Like, we had a calling and we didn't answer it. Like, you need to answer this, even if it causes sacrifice to our family. And I think that we have a soul that the Holy Spirit can affect. It can call to us. God can call to us. Jesus can call to us. And when we hear that call, if we don't answer it, we're turning away from God. I had a minister once who described sin as distance from God. And when we don't do what we need to do to help people in need, that we see the need, we're really exposed to it, and we look away, we are distancing ourselves from God in the most profound sense. And Jesus loved children more than anyone.
Right.
And whatsoever you do unto them, you do to me. And so our call is to help these children. Our call is to help these oppressed people around the world, not just children, but our call is to fight for justice and stand with the oppressed. So hopefully this film will give people of all faiths a heart call to answer that we've looked away long enough, and now we have to get involved. We have to get active, not just awareness, but action. We have to support, we have to lend our volunteer services or our professional services to people in need. We have to call upon our governments, our local and state and national governments, to toughen legislation against these people who right now still kind of operate in an atmosphere of impunity. And we have to try and alleviate the root causes why people are vulnerable to trafficking in the beginning. Whether in our country, in our country, most of the domestic minor sex trafficking is domestic minors from the U.S. Most of our child sex trafficking is American kids. It's not mostly immigrated people. It's people who are from our own communities who have fallen through the cracks, and often they're sold by their own parents or uncles or friends. Or gangs that recruit them in middle school by sending social media stuff and finding them online and finding a disaffected young girl who's like feels lonely and being like, hey, come to this party. And then they get them involved in these situations where then they have compromise on them and they force them into the life at 12. And, we're not facing it with a head-on, multi-pronged human rights approach that goes for prevention, punishment of the perpetrator, and then building up of the victims' lives after they've been helped to exit. So that's what we have to do as a society. It's not just awareness. And men, number one thing, don't buy sex. Don't raise your sons to buy sex, because you're creating that marketplace for those trafficked human beings. And obviously the most heinous of it all is the trafficking of those children.
Thank you so much. Hey, I know we're talking about heavy subjects, but so on a lighter note, flip side, do you ever break out the Romy voice anymore? The accent? Can you still?
I can still do it. We're going to do a sequel.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. So you'll get that to look forward to after the writers and maybe after actors strike, because we're just waiting to hear if that's happening. We'll know in like 2 days. But once the writer's strike is over, Robin Schiff has a draft of the new sequel. We're in negotiations with Disney to do the sequel. Lisa and I were participating in the drafting of this script, and we're so excited to do it. And there'll be more love and laughter and crazy dance stuff and hilarity. So.
And you nailed that voice. I just thought it was just so great. It's such an iconic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.